As some of you know, a fun hobby of mine is to make up some new items for Risk of Rain 2. Given an infinite paint bucket of statistics and debuffs in a game I love, coming up with these new ideas for how the complicated roguelike could be more complicated is just so fun. Last time I did this video idea, I had you guys come up with a bunch of new item names simply out of nowhere. The only challenge for me would be putting the stats to those names. So this time, I tried something different. I asked my Discord to name me some items from other games that I could then translate into Risk of Rain 2. And let me tell you, I've never read so many wiki pages. So here we go. I have 35.5 items to get through, plus some viewer submitted ones. So let's get started with the... The Knight's Nail from Hollow Knight is the titular main character's weapon, and the main inspiration for the statistics was how the weapon upgrades with you as you progress through the game, but more importantly, in a very simple way. All that changes is its damage, so we have this. Common, the Knight's Nail, gain +6, +6 per stack. Base damage. This item upgrades itself every 3 levels, +1 base damage per item per 3 levels. To clarify, if you had 5 of these at level 2, you would have +30 base damage, but the instant you level up to 3, each of your nails increase their individual damage by 1, so your total would now be +35 base damage, since each of your nails now give you +7 each instead of +6. I like items that are simple but have more to them once you stack them more and more into the late game, and I think this item scratches that itch well. RimWorld is the next game we're visiting, and is also one of the most difficult games I've ever attempted to play. Our new item is a simple one that might be a little niche, but fun nonetheless. Common, Thrumbo Horn. Deal an additional 30%, +15% per stack. Damage 1 second after hitting an enemy with a melee or explosive attack. This additional hit cannot be blocked or dodged. I like the nicheness of this item, and it's also another one that complements Loader well. I don't think it would be too strong, but I do think it would definitely make a difference in their single target damage. I think I just like simple damage increasing items, because this next one follows our previous trend of being simple and buffing your base damage in some kind of way. This item is the Clutch Claw from Monster Hunter World, and as far as I'm aware, it's used to grapple yourself to an enemy, so this is what it does in Risk of Rain 2. Common, Clutch Claw. Rooted enemies take 10%, +10% per stack, more damage and are rooted for 0.5, +0.5 per stack, seconds longer. Again, it's simple, but I think there should be an item that rewards you a little more for rooting your enemies, since right now it's not really that helpful. Going back to Hollow Knight again, we have one of our first cases of an item that is basically the same in both games. The Mark of Pride is an item in Hollow Knight that increases the hitbox of your attack by a small amount, and so that's exactly what it does in Risk of Rain 2 as well. Common, Mark of Pride. Increase all of your attack hitboxes by 1%, +1% per stack. Stack a bunch of these, and you're going to be hitting things you weren't even aiming at. When it says just attack hitboxes, it means all attacks. So melee, AoE, bullets, all of them are increased. Maybe 1% isn't that much, but I imagine it would snowball over the course of your run, and would be just so fun to just shoot with commando and hit everything. Our last common is the Potato Chips from Terraria, another game I am terrible at. Common, Potato Chips. After each item pickup, gain a stack of Well Fed, which increases your attack speed and movement speed for 5%, +5% per stack. Well Fed lasts for 40 seconds, does not stack, and does not persist between levels. I don't know if this one is too good for you, just like the potato chips in real life, but we all need something to put into the scrapper. There are some items that don't really fit command runs, and some that do very well, and I think this is one of those items that I would love to see in a calming drizzle run with no command at 4 AM. Now on to the which personally, for me, were one of the most fun items to come up with. Our first green item is from Elden Ring, which I'm going to preface, the Elden Ring wiki tells you nothing about the items. It just things like their pass and what they're made of, and it was just so tough coming up with stats for these items from that game because of this. Anyways, uncommon, Moonlight Greatsword. All attacks apply a stack of frost, which slows enemies by 15%. If an enemy has 4 or more stacks of frost, they become frozen, dealing 10%, +10% per stack. Damage per second. Stacks persist until the enemy dies or is cleansed. I do like this item a lot actually, but it isn't really closely related to what it does in Elden Ring. I do enjoy this item and how it rewards constantly attacking a single enemy, and it will only ramp up over time. Now to a game that it was much easier to translate items from, Bloons Tower Defense 6. The Berserker Brew is a classic item in that game, so I attempted to do it justice in its statistics here. Uncommon, Berserker Brew. Upon killing an enemy, throw a buffing potion in front of you that leaves a 10 plus 2 per stack meter radius area of effect that increases your and all of your allies' attack speeds by 15% and decreases cooldowns by 10%. Lasts 8 seconds, plus 0.5 per stack. This is a more strategic item that I like a lot. It would be fun to place an enemy between yourself and an ally to throw the brew right after killing the enemy to maximize your efficiency in fights. This next item is a fun one because I actually went back to it and made it more complicated for some reason. The game is Dead Cells and the item is the Symmetrical Lance, which allows you to attack behind you as well as in front. So this is what it does in Risk of Rain. Uncommon, Symmetrical Lance. Killing 4 enemies in 15 seconds increases your critical hit chance by 30%, plus 10% per stack, and duplicates all of your attacks behind you for 6 plus 2 per stack seconds. This one would be chaotic and I love it. Combined with the Berserker's Pauldron, it would be super rewarding to chain kills after one another. It's also a great way to crash your games after looping 4 times. Back to Terraria once more, we have the Fire Gauntlet, a weapon with a high amount of knockback in a game which, in Risk of Rain, is at a great shortage. There aren't enough ways to push your enemies around, and I'm tired of it. Uncommon, Fire Gauntlet, 10% chance on hit to burn and apply 20 plus 5 per stack meters of knockback onto an enemy. Another item that would be so fun to stack, because imagine just looking at an enemy and sending them flying across the world. Do you know what else there's a lack of in Risk of Rain? Water-based items, obviously. And we'll get our fix of water items from everyone's favorite game to make fun of, Genshin Impact. Uncommon, Luxurious Sea Lord. All attacks slow enemies for 10% and have a 10% plus 10% per stack chance to be pulled towards you and take 5% more damage for 3 seconds. Also, this is another item that you can move your enemies around with. It's a lot more fun, and I can only wonder how this and the Fire Gauntlet would interact. What would happen if you pulled and pushed someone at the same time? These questions baffle scientists every day. Our next item was a tough one to come up with, but I just couldn't turn it down. A huge part of my fan base is, honestly, suspiciously into Ultra Kill, so I knew I had to try and go above and beyond with its statistics. The item in specific is the marksman version of the revolver V1 uses in that game, which it can throw a coin into the air and shoot it for some increased damage onto the nearest enemy. This is what I made of that in Risk of Rain 2. Uncommon, marksman revolver. After killing an enemy, a coin spawns 10 meters above where they died. Hitting this coin with any attack automatically hits the nearest enemy for 100% plus 100% per stack total damage. If there are 2 or more coins within 40 meters of each other, the coins will chain. To expand on this further, chaining the coins would just continuously increase the damage between them by 100%, so it would get a little ridiculous when there are a billion enemies in the late game. But they would only ever be able to hit one enemy at the end of the chain. All attacks would be able to hit the coin, but more specifically, most items would be able to hit them as well, such as an ATG missile would target it if there were no other enemies closer. Please let me know what you think of this item, because I really like it, and that goes for any of the other items as well. Please just comment, please. Please. The next game on our journey here is Noida, a very strange game of which I actually have 9 minutes of playtime in, but I have actually just zero clue how to play. The item in particular here is the Broken Wand. Uncommon, Broken Wand. 20% chance on kill to throw a broken wand 20 meters in a random direction. The wand pulses every 1.5 seconds for 4.5 plus 1.5 per stack seconds to create a random area of effect every pulse 10 meters around the wand. To clarify which effects it would apply, it could literally be any effect. Bleed, burn, slow, freeze, or even malachite for each pulse could equally happen. I think it would be neat also to push the item to almost be a lunar one, where the pulses could be positive as well and heal or buff the enemies too. Borderlands 2 is where our next item comes from, and it gave me a chance to include an already existing effect from Risk of Rain 2 and utilize it in an easier to obtain way. Uncommon, Thunderball Fist. 50% chance to attach 1 plus 1 per stack Lightning Bomb to an enemy that deals 30% total damage. If you didn't see it already, the Lightning Bomb has the same effect the silence between two strikes aspect of lightning applies on hit, and I've always been a little disappointed that it wasn't used in more areas of that game. The Binding of Isaac I think was too obvious for submission, so I'm surprised I received as few as I did. Regardless, here is our penultimate uncommon item. Uncommon, Mysterious Liquid. Every 5th hit leaves a 10-meter diameter pool of creep on the ground below an enemy that deals 10% damage every 0.2 seconds for 1 + 1 per stack seconds. Yet another item that isn't so great in the beginning, but I think it would get ridiculous over time the more you stack it. Nowhere is safe when everything is covered in creep. This last uncommon was by far the most difficult item to come up with. It is the Dweller's Mask from A Hat in Time, which, in that game, allows you to turn these green holographic objects, which you normally just pass through, into physical objects that you can use for platforming. This was really hard to translate into Risk of Rain 2, since there really isn't any terraforming in that game, or even a shield of any form except for Engineer's Bubble. But I think I got this to a place where it wouldn't be too restricting and still be a helpful item. Uncommon, Dweller's Mask. On kill, spawn a 10x5 + 1x1 per stack, caps at 20x15 meter holographic wall where the enemy died that stops all projectile and beam attacks from your enemies. The wall lasts 20 seconds and only a maximum of 10 can exist at any time. The wall does not stop enemies or yourself or your allies from passing through it. It's so incredibly niche, I know, but it would be super fun to strategize around the walls after you kill an enemy, like killing a beetle and just using the wall to block a Stone Titan laser would be very interesting and fun to pull off. A lot of the famous items from other games are strong ones, so it's no surprise that a lot of the items ended up becoming The first legendary is from Soul Knight, a game I have literally never heard before, but is apparently a good one with a cult following. Legendary, Rapid Clip. All debuffs have a 50% chance to apply 1 + 1 per stack more time on an enemy. Imagine this with like full bleed and high attack speed. 150% more bleed would be super fun and also very strong. It's a simple item, but I think sometimes the best ones are. Going back to Isaac, we have an item that I think opens a nice little world of possibilities for future item ideas, getting more out of chests. Legendary, Damocles. 50% + 5% per stack, caps at 75%. Chance for every chest to duplicate the item it drops. Starting at 50% for this one, I think might be a little too much, but I genuinely can't decide. It's a legendary item, so it should be really good, and I don't feel too bad about making it this strong. Getting this early in a run would snowball you forward very nicely, which I think is cool. An item that absolutely had to be a legendary was the Hammer of Dawn from Gears of War, because, like, come on, it's the Hammer of Dawn. Legendary, Hammer of Dawn. On kill, summon a satellite laser after 2 seconds that deals 30% + 10% per stack. Total damage every 0.1 seconds for 4 seconds. For those of you who can't do math, that's 1200% damage over 4 seconds, also known as a whole damn lot. The only thing really balancing about this is the laser, which would be pinpoint and would only really be able to hit one thing at a time. In Gears of War, it destroys literally everything near it, and I honestly had to dial it down a lot for this game. Going back to Noida, we have another item that apparently automatically attacks all enemies near you with a laser. Imagine Captain's passive, but it chose violence. Legendary, Haha Silna. I don't know how to pronounce that, sorry. Sue me. Summon an orbiting eye that fires a slowing beam at enemies within 15 meters for 500% + 100% per stack. Damage once every 2 seconds. I do like automatic items that just do damage on their own, like the Tessa Coil, so this would fit that niche well. It would help those late game run moments where you don't really have time to sit still and find yourself running through massive groups of enemies often. I imagine it would be able to proc things, basically making it so you only needed to worry about your WASD and space buttons to play the game. Returning to the Borderlands series, we have Death Trap, which is one of the only characters submitted as items I received. It's a simple translation, but I like the idea of this character being with you to fight. Legendary, Death Trap. Summon Death Trap to fight for you with 100% + 100% per stack damage and 100% + 100 per stack health. Respawns every level if killed. He would attack much more consistently and faster than the Beetle Guard does, but would probably be a little slower. This is, I'm pretty sure, what he does in Borderlands. He would be a lot more versatile character ally option that I would like to think would also receive the buffs from spare drone parts. Yet another item here that does basically the same thing in both games, the Bloody Idol from Slay the Spire. This item has been made before in mods for Risk of Rain, but I believe I still like where I got it here. Legendary, Bloody Idol. Heal 5 HP, plus 5 per stack. After gaining 10 gold, gain a 15% chance to negate bleed damage. I don't know if this would be too strong or not, but I very much think this would still be a good item. The little bit extra I added was just for fun, since you are rarely bled in the game anyways. I think we should normalize items having weird and small side aspects simply because it's fun. Even cooler would be if the game didn't tell you, and it would be only a thing you found out after 500 hours in and on the wiki. Speaking of bleed, here's an item that will help a lot with your bleed builds, courtesy of the Chainsword from Warhammer 40k. Legendary, Chainsword. Gain a 15% chance to bleed on hit. Increase your bleed damage by 50%, plus 20% per stack. I really like bleed builds, so I don't really care if this one is too strong or not. It's fun, and that is all I literally care about when making items here. It's fun, okay? I don't care. Balance comes second, and if you have any ideas of how these items should be balanced, let me know in the comments, but please be nice about it, please. 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 And our last legendary item is from Team Fortress 2, which I'm honestly was surprised to receive any item suggestions from at all. Nonetheless, here we are with an item that was not easy to give statistics to at all, and I'm a little bit disappointed in. Legendary, Rocket Launcher. All weapon shots also fire a rocket that deals 300% plus 150 per stack damage and deals knockback to enemies and yourself. The rocket also deals 100% self-damage. I don't know if I did this one justice. I was supposed to include rocket jumping, but I really couldn't think of how to incorporate that at all. This was also the first item I gave statistics to overall, so I think maybe my mind just wasn't in the right place or something. Outside of this, though, I do think this item would be very chaotic, and that's what matters. It would be really funny to accidentally kill yourself 10 hours into a run. Anyways, on to our next category of items. I wanted to avoid making void items, pun absolutely intended, because they sort of conflict with a lot of modded items that already exist, and they also restrict me from relating what the new item does to what the item it corrupts does. Because of this, I only made one void item out of the Man Catchers from Castle Crashers. Void Uncommon. Man Catcher. Corrupts all crowbars. Deal 50% plus 50% per stack. Increased damage to enemies below 20% health. This one is simple and admittedly a little too obvious, but I still think it would be a cool addition to the game, and honestly it's a missed opportunity if you ask me. Anyways, on to we had a whole lot of. Many of these items that were sent to me were activated items in their respective games, so I sort of felt like I had to turn them into an equipment here. The game this next item is from intrigues me, but not in a I want to play it way, but in more of a similar way to how animals at the zoo interest me. Anyways, from Pizza Tower, we have Satan's Choice. Equipment, Satan's Choice. Upon activation, eat a Satan's Choice pepper pizza and become immune to all slowing and freezing effects for 15 seconds. Cooldown of 30 seconds. Another niche one, but to be honest, I really don't feel too bad about that. A lot of equipments in Risk of Rain are very specific, and only a select few can be used in any situation. Maybe this would be helpful on a run with that artifact that makes every enemy elite or something, but who knows. Our next item is the HEV suit from Half-Life, and I need to get something off my chest before we read it out. HEV stands for Hazardous Environment Suit. Yeah, really. It's not even a proper acronym. They could have gone with Hazardous Environment Suit, HES, but no, HEV just sounds cooler. What the hell? Equipment, HEV suit. When held, all damage received is decreased by 10%, and you heal for 20% of the damage received after taking fall damage. The inspiration for this one is pretty obvious, but the whole point of the suit in that game is to help Gordon survive falls that he otherwise wouldn't, and it also fills the lack of items in this game that stops or mitigates fall damage, with the only item that does that being the head stompers. Retaliation items like razor wire are also pretty rare in ROR2. In Alien Swarm, Reactive Drop, this set of armor acts as a retaliation item similar to the razor wire, so that's what the inspiration was for its statistics. Equipment V45 Electric Charged Armor. Upon activation, all damage received is decreased by 10%, and the damage dealer takes 50% of the damage dealt for 15 seconds. Cooldown of 60 seconds. Another item here that I think would help you during those chaotic teleporter fights, as well as an item that I think would be super fun to buff with a bunch of fuel cells and gestures. A classic item coming from Team Fortress. It's Team Fortress 2 still, not class. You know what, never mind. Equipment. Bonk Atomic Punch. Upon ingestion, gain 8 seconds of invulnerability. Instead of a cooldown, there are ammo packs, up to 10 at any time, strewn evenly around the map at set locations that recharge every 30 seconds and, upon pickup, allow you to use Bonk Atomic Punch again. I like this one a lot, but I also think it needs some clarifications. So yeah, no cooldown. But instead, it works like it says in its description. On each map, depending on the size of the map, there will be between 6 and 10 ammo packs that are the same as ammo refuels in TF2, and you would have to pick them up in order to use the punch again. All that fuel cells would do would allow you to stack charges of it, and gestures would both activate it instantly, but also decrease the cooldown of the recharge time of the ammo packs instead. Overall, a fun item to min-max, and an item that, like in TF2, would get you out of a tough spot. As stated in the last video, I love charming items. The idea of making enemies fight each other just scratches that schadenfreude part of my brain, and the item that we have here is pretty obviously made for this. Arguably one of the most popular items from any game, the Pokeball, from Pokemon, obviously. Equipment, Pokeball. Upon activation, throw a Pokeball in an arc in front of you. If it hits an enemy, they become charmed for 30 seconds, dealing double damage and turning against their allies. Cooldown of 80 seconds. This would work on bosses as well, and I think it would just be super fun. I initially thought of adding a chance-based aspect to whether the enemy would be captured or not, but I didn't want it to be frustrating to use. And that's all of our equipment's done. All that's left is some of the most fun items in the game to make the Lunars. The lunar items were really fun to make, as I said, so let's start off with a really chaotic one sent to us from Soul Knight. Lunar, fully automatic device. Triple your base damage and increase your movement speed by 10%, plus 10% per stack. However, you no longer control when your abilities are used. Pressing their respective keybinds does nothing, and instead they will all go off completely randomly, at least 1 per 10, 0.9 seconds per stack, caps at 3 seconds. Also important is that attack speed and cooldown reduction items would make the cooldowns fire more often within that 10 seconds. The chaos is really the only thing I had in mind with this item, and I love where it got to. This would make for a great challenge build as well. Back to Isaac we return with this next item, and I think it's super fun. The item is called the Glitched Crown, which, in that game, makes every item pickup rapidly roll through a bunch of options, which really sounds like an adaptive chest in ROR2, doesn't it? Lunar, Glitched Crown. All chest prices are reduced by 15%, plus 10% per stack, it caps at 85%. But all chests become adaptive chests. It's simple, of course, but hey, it could be good for you. You could get some good items, or you could just sentence yourself to a hell of infinite commons. It's up to you, but anything for a discount, right? Remember when I said in the beginning of this video that there were 35.5 items? Yeah, that's because for this one, I couldn't decide between 2 ideas for what it should do. Both options are really good though, and they come via Gunfire Reborn. Lunar, Corrupted Golden Goblet. Gain either a 50% boost to 1 plus 1 per stack, random stat, or decrease 1 plus 1 per stack, random stat by 50%. This first option is really fun and is basically exactly what it does in Gunfire. This option is for those in the audience with gambling addictions. I'm here for you. Lunar, Corrupted Golden Goblet. Receive a random lunar item pickup with 10% increased positive stats. This one is technically all positives and would depend on the random item you get. For example, Gestures would decrease your equipment cooldowns by 60% instead of 50%, or Visions of Heresy doing 130% damage instead of 120. The only downside of this is that you wouldn't know which random item you would get until you picked it up. Because this item is mostly positive though, I imagine it would be a little rarer to find than the rest of the Lunars. Coming down from the last items high, we have an item from Elden Ring that, whether it's my fault or the wikis, I'm pretty disappointed in. Anyways, we have an interesting one called Giza's Wheel. Lunar, Giza's Wheel. Increase your base damage by 300%, plus 100% per stack, but decrease your attack speed by 150%, plus 50% per stack, and increase your cooldowns by 10%, plus 10% per stack. The only inspiration for this was that the weapon was heavy-hitting but slow in that game. So yeah, not really great and kind of disappointing, but maybe it would be cool to find? I don't know. Let's just move on. Our last lunar item is from Pokemon again, and is the Choice Band, an all-or-nothing item that I like a lot. Lunar Choice Band. Drastically improve the effect of one of your abilities at random. Another of your abilities becomes permanently locked. This item does not stack. No stacking? Lame. But if y'all didn't notice already, this is inspired by the ROR1 item, the Ancient Scepter, which buffs one of your abilities. So what if it was evil, I guess? And our final non-viewer submitted item is a lunar equipment that would be so much fun to rock and stone with. It is by far my favorite item that I created for this video, and it comes via Deep Rock Galactic. It's literally written down in front of me. I'm reading off of a script, and my brain was like, what is the name of the game? Okay, whatever. Lunar equipment. Blackout Stout. Upon activation, multiply your damage by 2 and increase your movement speed by 20%. Also upon activation, a blackout meter appears on the HUD that scales with your level. Healing fills this meter, and if you do not heal enough to fill the meter in 10 seconds, you black out, leaving you immobile and unable to use your abilities for 30 seconds. Cooldown of 150 seconds. So much fun, and another item similar to the Spinal Tonic that could be a lunar item with all positives if you somehow overcome its negatives with fuel cells and gestures. I don't know how much you would need to heal to fill this blackout meter, but I do think it would be pretty tough. Something like 200% of your max health to start would be difficult enough, I think. And that's it for the items I came up with. However, just like in the last video, I gave you guys some famous items from other games for you all to give your own statistics. P.S. If you want to be a part of these kinds of things in the future, make sure to join the Discord. Anyways, I gave you guys 8 items. 4 of these I assigned rarities to, and the other 4 it was up for you guys to come up with rarities for. So please enjoy my favorite of these submissions, read out loud and voiced by some helpful members of the community. Some of these even have logbook entries, wow. The first item I gave you guys was the knife Frisk used in Undertale, which was assigned to be a lunar item.
Lunar. Worn Dagger and the Real Knife from Undertale. Obtain the Worn Dagger, which increases total damage dealt by 10%, plus 10% per stack, stacks linearly, but reduces all other stats by 5%, plus 5% per stack, stacks exponentially. Every 20 kills, gain another copy of this item. After 120 total kills, or 7 copies of Worn Dagger, transform all copies of Worn Dagger to the Real Knife, which increases damage and maximum health by 20%, plus 20% per stack, stacks exponentially. However, if you don't kill within 2 minutes, you die.
Very interesting and very complicated. I love it. It's really interesting that it stacks via kills instead of more item pickups, and I think it's really neat that it isn't all bad and might actually be worth taking. Item number 2 was the classic Enchanted Golden Apple from Minecraft, which of course had to be a legendary.
Enchanted Golden Apple. Killing an enemy has a 2% chance, plus 2% per stack, to drop a golden orb that grants 80% of max health as barrier that starts decaying after 2 minutes, restores 5% of max health, makes you immune to burning, and increases armor by 20% for 5 minutes.
The attention to detail here that makes it have similar statistics to what it has in Minecraft is really, really cool. Imagine the monster tooth, but it's automatic and actually helpful. This next item is the strawberry from Celeste, which ended up being very cool and was assigned as being an uncommon.
Uncommon strawberry. On kill, enemies will drop a strawberry that will start following you at a rapid pace. Until the strawberry is collected, gain 5% damage, plus an additional 2.5% per stack. Strawberries can stack up to 10.
Logbook entry. Bad work. Petrichor 5. I've been hiking this damn mountain for ages. Just trying to get away from the hordes of creatures this place so endlessly provides. But I noticed that at a point, these natural strawberries growing on the sides of this mountain. It's one of the only forms of food left of this side. Here's hoping I get a rescue soon. I don't think I can survive on these much longer.
So cool. And I like that it rewards you for staying on the move. According to the submission author, this item's stats was inspired by the 100% speedrun in the game, where the runners will stack a large trail of the berries behind themselves because to maximize the effect, you need to group a lot of them and then run away using movement classes to gain a lot of damage. I don't know what that means, but I very much appreciate them putting in the effort to find the inspiration for the item like this. And the last assigned rarity item was an equipment in the form of Frost's welcome mats from Rainbow Six Siege. It's a bear trap, but for people. How cute.
Equipment, welcome mat. Throw down 3 rectangular traps that permanently root any non-boss enemy. Boss enemies instead take 500 base damage over the 6 seconds per trap stepped in. Traps are destroyed after 20 seconds, if they do not root an enemy. Cooldown of 120 seconds.
Balanced and fun to spam, as every good equipment should be. I like to imagine the spam of this would eventually lead to the whole ground being covered in these small, angry black rectangles. On to the unassigned items, we'll start with the Froggy Chair from the Animal Crossing series.
Uncommon. Froggy Chair. Animal Crossing New Horizons. Standing still charges a super jump over 2 seconds, granting 150% plus 100% per stack, increased jump height the next time you jump.
Do you know what this place needs?
No. Thomas, I think it looks just fine as it is. This isn't supposed to be some fancy, well-decorated space. It's a prefab apartment, for crying out loud.
The man named Thomas sighed at his friend's clear disregard for the value of aesthetics in this line of work. Every day they dealt with shipping industrial equipment, weapons of war, and trinkets with properties that would be called magical, if not for management insisting that magic isn't real. The amount of paperwork they had to do every week was enough to drive even the most enduring of men to the brink of insanity, and now his roommate was insisting that this bland, basic, 2-bedroom apartment was just fine? Oh, this would not do. Thomas had not come all the way here only to live in squalor.
It needs a chair.
We already have chairs.
No, let me finish. A chair shaped like a frog. It's genius, isn't it? A perfect statement piece for the living room. We could get some other aquatic furniture too, like a table shaped like a lily pad.
I regret not getting a place with Mykin while I still had the chance.
Jump height is a rarely touched on statistic in Risk of Rain, so an uncommon that would sort of sit in the background and help you traverse the map after standing still for a bit for a breather would be super fun, kind of like how a chair sits in the background. The next item is the Beehive from Ultimate Chicken Horse.
Common Beehive. Enemies with at least 1 debuff are surrounded by a swarm of bees, stinging enemies with 4 meters plus 2 meters per stack for 100% base damage plus 50% per stack per second.
Order. Beehive. Mostly intact. Tracking number 265. Estimated delivery 6/12/2059. Shipping method standard. Shipping address Parker Interplanetary Pest Control Central Offices, Manchester, Earth. Shipping details
Do you know that they had bees on Mars? I didn't. I found these blighters in one of those farming sectors. They set up a giant hive on the roof of a chicken coop, and the poor chickens could barely get inside without being stung. I actually got a few stings myself while getting rid of the hive, and man, these bastards were persistent. Chased me halfway across the dome when I pissed them off. Figured you might want to have a look at them, as it's not kind of the bee I've ever dealt with. Do be gentle with them. They keep grudges.
I love items with prerequisites like this, and I like that it could maybe be a debuff of its own. Its incredible stackability of this would also be really, really fun. I threw in a pretty tough one as well with this next item. The starting rock from Rust is a hallmark of that game, so let's see if you guys did it justice.
Uncommon. Rock. Hitting an enemy with a melee attack has 20% chance to bludgeon them, stunning them for 3 seconds and decreasing their armor by 20, plus 10 per stack. If the enemy cannot be stunned, slow the enemy by 50% instead.
I was always taught to maintain a professional attitude when I was recruited. You must follow all protocols down to the letter, or else you are not fit, they say. Always use the right tool for the job, or it's gonna get done, they say. But what's a protocol in the face of desperation? Furthermore, what's the difference between a Lemurian killed by a gunshot and a Lemurian with a skull crushed by a rock I found? Doesn't seem like much of a difference to me. If there's anything that being trapped on this planet has taught me, it's that desperation is survival. UES signal echoes. Contact light.
Yeah, you absolutely did. This is super interesting, and I always liked the idea of new debuffs being added with these items. Another item for the desperate loader mains out there too. We're here for you. And our final item, the pufferfish from Stardew Valley.
Equipment, pufferfish. Upon activation, launch a pufferfish within an arc in front of you, which explodes for 500% damage into 30 spikes within 30 meters. If a spike hits an enemy, it applies bleed, which deals 150% damage every second for 5 seconds. Cooldown of 25 seconds.
Sender. Officer. Receiver. Evidence ward. Police station. From the video logs of Professor.
They all told me that bioengineering was a poor choice of a major. But did I listen to them? No! I followed my dreams, and what has come out of them is beautiful. My colleagues called me insane. They said my experiments were crazy. I got fired for being mentally unstable. Can you imagine? They know nothing of the power they could wield. The last experiment.
The professor's remains were found on the floor, walls, and ceiling of his laboratory, charred and impaled. We think his last experiment took its freedom by force. Be careful with the sample we found. We don't know if it's still alive.
This is so violent, and I love it. I do think the cooldown is a little short, but I like how it's like a multiple staged attack. With the initial explosion, as well as the spikes, it would be very chaotic with a terrifying logbook entry as well. Jesus. Alright, that's it. But before we go, I'm going to give you guys some items to give your own statistics to down in the comments. Same rules as before, half of them will have assigned rarities and the other ones you can give your own. And remember, bonus points for inspirations from the items in their respective games, and even more bonus points for a logbook entry. For the assigned ones, Baptiste's Immortality Field from Overwatch 2 as an equipment, the Black Cauldron Diogenes sits in from Getting It Over It with Bennett Foddy as a legendary, the Pipe Wrench from Bendy and the Ink Machine as a common, and the Umbrella Slime from Terraria as a lunar item. And the unassigned items, the Lizard Doggo from Satisfactory, the Huntress Boltcaster from Prey, the Sun from One Shot, and the Red Brick from LEGO Star Wars. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Anyways, I've held you all for too long. Thank yous to all of the voice actors who helped out with the video, and thank you for a whole 2,000 billion freaking subscribers. It's Super cool that we've hit that milestone so quickly, and I can't wait for the future of this channel. Thanks so much for watching, and thank you to our members, the_Radiance, Ree, and Lucas Houston. If you would like to support the channel without spending any money like they did, you can always like the video and subscribe to the channel. We also have a Discord which you can join, and where we hold some pretty fun events sometimes. Thanks so much for watching again, and bye-bye.